Every year, a select few Freemasons from lodges across Hertfordshire are invited to be Provincial Grand Stewards and serve a 2-year active role. Stewards are often selected from keen past masters who are yet to receive provincial honours and have demonstrated their potential for high office in the future. Being made Provincial Steward is a great honour and enables you to play a role in all major provincial events. To find out more about the stewards, we asked them some questions. When did you first become a steward?
I first became a steward in September 2018.
I first became a provincial steward in 2017.
I became a steward in September 2018.
I was made a provincial steward in 1999.
I first became a Provincial Grand Steward in September 2012, and I was fortunate enough to stay on until September 2015.
What was your first duty as a steward?
My first duty as a steward was at Joseph Moffat Lodge, which meets at Ashwell House, which was with the then Provincial Grand Master Colin Harris. The DC was Keith Dunnett, and we were there as stewards. And I remember the immense pride, that feeling that, being part of the procession in to the lodge and just being involved in the whole thing. It was fantastic.
My first duty as a steward was to escort the Deputy Provincial Grand Master, which was Dick Nifton, to Sawbridge West Lodge.
I will never forget it. I got on the wrong side of a deputation coming in and the wrong side again on a deputation coming out. And it was downhill from there.
My first duty as a steward was to escort the PGM, the Big Cheese. The Right Worshipful Provincial Grand Master was then Paul Gower, and it was at Cheshunt. And I'll never forget it because I put my foot in my mouth that day. I said to the DC, how should I address the Provincial Grand Master? Should I just call him Provincial Grand Master? He said, yeah, just say to him, hello, Provincial Grand Master, and he'll probably say, just call me Paul. So he walked to the door and I said to him, hi Paul, I'm Paul, all excited. And he sort of looked at me like, who are you? Should I know you? And I turned around and just thought, don't.
My first duty was escorting the past Deputy Provincial Grand Master, James Young. It was at the Cloisters. Brilliant experience, but really threw me into the deep end.
What does being a steward entail?
Being a steward entails, I would say, two things. The first is the escorting side, where you go out with the province and you go to, when the province visits lodges, you'll be part of that escort team. And then the other part of it is everything else, where we help out with things around the province. St Albans Pilgrimage, for example, or the Abbey service. If we have a festival on, then we'll help out at the summer fetes and things like that. So it's quite a varied role, but yeah, there's definitely the escorting side, and then there's the more kind of informal side to it.
Being a steward is you support the province in what it needs to do, whether or not that's its external image, working with the Abbey Cathedral of St Albans at the pilgrimage, helping stuff the envelopes so we can get the provincial news out, supporting the province to achieve what it needs to do, and representing Freemasonry as an institution.
A steward's role entails helping out at the provincial meeting, and where you take on various duties, and all of the people coming to that meeting will be looking to you for advice. You're expected to be almost kind of a fountain of all knowledge for that occasion. You'll be out escorting some members from the provincial executive, along with the DC, to installation meetings at lodges.
What is the point of being a steward?
The point of being a steward is that you are then available to be called upon by the province to help out any events the province are involved in, and also the escort duties.
I think the point of being a steward is to serve, ultimately. As a lodge steward, you serve the lodge, you'll serve wine at the festive board. As a provincial steward, you will serve the province and the wider community and Freemasonry in general. So yeah, I think being a provincial steward means you serve.
When I was first made a steward, it was explained to me, you are given this job, you're in the shop window. You have been picked for this prestigious appointment. but people are watching you, and it is the first chance you have got to impress people to do things in masonry.
Is much like being a steward in a lodge, in the fact that you get to watch and learn before you take on the full role. You get to watch and learn the higher offices that you probably will ascend to. It gives you time to get into that role and pace yourself.
The point of being a steward is that you support the province in what it's trying to do, whether that be from the ceremonial aspect of supporting one of the senior provincial grand officers in their escort, or it's helping run the day-to-day aspects.
What is your favourite part of being a steward?
Stewards Lodge. Stewards Lodge is important. It is the boys' club. It is where the boys get together.
My favourite activity of being a steward has been working at the events at St Albans Cathedral. There's lots of nice people you work with there, and you're very well appreciated for the work you're doing.
I wouldn't be able to number it down to one thing. Just say being a steward is the greatest thing about being a steward.
My favourite non-ceremonial activity of being a steward, I would say, is probably the annual provincial meeting in September. Mostly because there's just hundreds of Freemasons turning up, and as a steward you're part of it, you're making the event happen.
My favourite activity of being a steward is when we get to interact with the public and they ask you questions. For instance, when we do the pilgrimage or the St Albans church service, you're mingling with the public all the time, and they notice your high-vis tabards, and then they say, "Oh, you're a Freemason," and you get to talk to them and explain it to them. So that's always a nice thing to be involved with the public.
What does being a steward mean to you?
To me, I've got grand rank. I've had many good appointments in masonry, but steward is the first one, and it's steward for life. It is not just steward for a year.
Being a steward means to me an awful lot. Although I've gone on to higher office, I've been fortunate enough to go on to higher office, I would gladly put on my red collar and apron at a moment's notice to take part in any occasion, to feel that pride again in wearing that red regalia. It's that unusual. Most people take notice of it.
I was very proud to become a steward and being able to wear the distinctive red regalia which you see us all in, and it's good to be able to know that you're on call to help out and of any of the events the province may ask us to.
To me, being a steward means that you're able to serve. The province has honoured you with, on the books, what's the lowest rank, but it is the highest honour. Once a steward, always a steward.
Being a steward means to me quite a lot. It's opened the door for me in terms of visiting lodges around the province, going to different centres, meeting some wonderful people, wonderful Freemasons, and I owe all of that really to being a provincial steward.
What advice would you give a new steward?
Join Stewards Lodge, enjoy, and it will enhance your Masonic career.
The advice I'd give to anyone who's going to become a steward is to get involved as much as you can, because it's one of those things you get out of it what you put in. So it's always best to try and do as much as you can in the years you're active.
Sign up to everything. Do what meetings you can. Don't do it to detriment to yourself or your connections, but really try and engage in as many lodge meetings as you possibly can.
Advice to those becoming a steward, I would say be proud is the first thing. Be very proud. It's a role that you can really get your teeth into. I know it's a cliche to say that the more you put in, the more you get out. It's true of Freemasonry. It's very true of being a steward.
If someone can't make a meeting, be one of the first to say, "I can cover that, I can do that." Probably the thing I'd say most of the stewards is that don't accept the role if you can't commit to it. That's probably the worst thing that you could do, is not to fulfil what's expected of you in getting this prestigious office, really.
Who would make a good steward?
A Freemason who makes a good steward could be of any age, as long as they're willing to get involved. It's that enthusiasm for masonry that's really important, and that then shines through in everything that you do. And that's particularly important for a steward, because you will be asked to do lots of other duties that quite a lot of the other offices don't get involved in.
The great thing about a steward is it isn't all ritual focused. It's about what you've provided to your lodge. Continue to provide that support. Go out and visit. Support other lodges if you can. Join the Light Blues Club. Take part in Freemasonry. But most importantly, enjoy it. The enthusiasm that you show to your Freemasonry is the greatest way of demonstrating to the province that you will be a good steward or a good Provincial Grand Officer.
We are always looking for people that do things, not talk about it, not think about it. We're looking for the doers, because that's what the province needs.
I think being a good steward is about being a reliable person. If you say you'll come to something and you'll help out, then that's what you do. That's what makes a good steward in my eyes. As I said, you're there to serve. So if you're reliable and you're willing to help out, being a steward is for you.
Becoming a steward is an honour bestowed. If you are lucky enough to be selected, who knows what you may end up doing in the future.